Well, hello, everyone. My name is Emily with Transcend and the Mid-Atlantic ADA Center, and welcome to ADA Center's January webinar, The Intersection of Artificial Intelligence and Disability Rights. We're going to begin at 2 o'clock with our presentation, but before then, I just wanted to run through a few quick housekeeping slides to get us started. Next slide. So if you should experience any technical difficulties today, feel free to reach out to us via the chat icon here in the Zoom platform and type your message so we know how to help you, or give us a call at 301-217-0124. Slide 3. Audio today, you can join for audio, you can use your computer speakers via the Zoom webinar platform, or the phone setting to dial in. You can open up the audio settings window to change your audio settings. And that is that image on the slide is the audio settings panel. Slide 4. Captions. So this webinar is being captioned in real time. You can change the size of the caption display by clicking on the up arrow on the Show Captions button and then clicking on the caption settings. We also have ASL interpreting today, and our interpreters are spotlighted on the screen for you. Next slide, please. Slide 5. Questions and comments. So if you would like to ask a question for our presenters, select the chat icon and type in your question, or you can send your questions to adatraining@transcend.org. Slide 6, next slide. This webinar is being recorded, and you will receive an email with information on how to access the recording here shortly after today's live session. Next slide. Slide 7. Certificates of attendance. For those who purchased a certificate while registering for the session, you are eligible for one. The certificates are only available for attending the live sessions, and the code to submit for a certificate will be announced later in the session, so stay tuned. Next slide, slide 8. So a little bit about, well, first here, I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself. Presentation accessibility for the benefit of participants who are not able to see the presentation slides on the webinar platform. The speakers will announce the slide numbers and describe any images that are meaningful to the content of the session. Next slide. So about your host, as I mentioned, with Transcend Inc., Transcend's mission is to improve the lives of people with disabilities through meaningful work and community inclusion. The Mid-Atlantic ADA Center is a project of Transcend. Next slide, slide 10. So the ADA National Network, we are one of 10 regional centers that provide guidance, training, and materials on the ADA. The content information to reach out to an ADA center near you is provided here on this slide. Slide 11, next slide. Just a quick disclaimer, the Mid-Atlantic ADA Center, operated by Transcend, provides information, guidance, and training on the ADA. The materials and information provided are intended solely as informal guidance and should not be construed as legal advice. We are funded by the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, NIDLR for short, and NIDLR is a center within the Administration for Community Living at the Department of Health and Human Services. These contents do not necessarily represent the policy of NIDLR, ACL, or HHS, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. Next slide. All right, at this point, I am going to turn it over to our colleagues at the Southwest ADA Center, Diego and Marisa. Go ahead and take it away.
Hi there. This is Marisa Demaya with the Southwest ADA Center. And very quickly, I am going to assist our presenter with slides and questions throughout the session. I'll quickly introduce our presenter, Diego Demaya, and for anyone who does not know, my older brother. Diego's been with our center 20 plus years now, I think, going on. He's our lead trainer and director of technical assistance. As I mentioned, he happens to be my big brother. Um, I've had the pleasure of working with him at the ADA Center just by kind of mere coincidence for the last 10 years or so. We have a lot of great content to get through today, so I'm going to quickly turn it over to him to get us started. Diego.
Okay, hi guys, and thank you for joining us, and thank you, Marissa, for that lovely introduction. And by the way, in case some of you might wondering if you can't see my photo or whatever, she said big brother. I'm 6'7" tall, so I'm a tall person. I tend to tower over people, so I try to minimize my humility when I'm trying to, rather maximize my humility, I should say. When I'm talking to people, especially during live presentations. But anyway, thank you for joining us. We have indeed a fascinating topic. I'm going to get to the first slide of the presentation, which is the
Slide
AI
13.
using throat vibrations to show you guys that I am jumping, hands and feet and everything else into the water. Into the water. And, to start off with a positive note, because regrettably, there's a lot of negatives about artificial intelligence floating around. But there are also, I'm beginning to believe, an equal balance of, positive news on the AI or artificial intelligence front. And it's things such as what I got on the slide here, where we're talking about new technology, where AI is being used for people with this, speech impediments, speech related disabilities, communication disabilities. In this case, the voice box, a very complicated human organ, the ability to talk, which can be affected by so many different types of disabilities and medical conditions. And I thought it worth it to mention this as a sort of interesting, jump off point, because AI and medicine, there's a huge, it's growing by leaps and bounds, practically without any warning as to what AI is capable of doing in the world of medicine, and science, in general. If we go to the next slide, it's also the same topic, where
Slide
em
14.
emotional vibrations, right? Measuring emotional vibrations. This is to, I titled the slide that because you can see what's going on here, what this is about, but my main intent is to show that we are getting to the point where AI or algorithms, as you will see in the next couple of slides, algorithms which make up artificial intelligence, they're the building blocks, along with lots and lots and lots of volumes and volumes of, information and data that gets collected. We are getting to the point where the AI is able to read the throat vibrations of an individual, and along with various other inputs, data inputs and factors, such as using, attachable wearable devices and sensors and whatnot, they are able to help the person communicate. So it's only a matter of time before we see this technology basically put into a watch you put on your wrist, and that person would be able to carry on a conversation probably quite normally even though they may not be able to use their voice, they may not be able to use their tongue, or move their jaw properly, whatever the medical condition would be or disability. So again, we have a huge positive to celebrate when it comes to this field, and I just cannot make that clear enough. Going to the next slide.
All right, we go into the United Health Faces lawsuit, slide 15.
And I am here jumping into also, hands and feet and everything into the water again with the sharks. We're jumping into the fact that there are problems, and we face lots of problems coming up during what I'd like to call, as you will see later in the slides, the integration period of AI, because we are in a period where we're integrating as a society, we're starting to integrate AI into our everyday life routines. And here we have a prime example of a huge corporation, United Health, and its
Sure.
subsidiaries, where we are. They were taken to court by plaintiffs whose family members passed away, and they are blaming the insurance carriers here in this case for for wrongful death, basically lawsuits. These are wrongful death, civil.
Diego, if you want me to jump in and read anything, let me know.
Yeah, no, I will. In fact, I was going to mention that the way that you and I work are to
yes,
to go, back and forth. So I hope people don't think that's too choppy for us. We work together this way all the time, and I usually will have Marisa read slides out loud to kind of better help me and kind of wake up the audience as to what we are, where we are and what we're talking about. But not all the time. I expect people to be able to know what's on the to know what's on the slides.
we
Now,
also threw up here quickly, Diego. We did throw up here a little illustration. It's just the United Health Group logo that we put up there in the corner.
Okay. If we go to the next slide.
All right. Slide 16, we're at mechanism for maximizing profits.
Right.
So we're talking about
so
the
basically,
predict. Go ahead.
Right. So we begin the topic of AI basically making money. Artificial intelligence is making money, and it cannot be denied. We live in a capitalistic society where inventions and patents and copyrights and trademark secrets and patented secrets and trade secrets, all of these inventions under the umbrella of artificial intelligence, what's happening is that they're being used, they're being deployed, and to the criticism of a lot of people, a lot of critics out there, probably way too soon. We're deploying AI technology way too soon into the market for companies to start using, deploying into their systems to manage and to run functions and to make decisions, which is the important of what's happening here, right? What's happening here is that you have an AI that is making medical determinations that normally a doctor should make. So here you have an AI being alleged by the plaintiffs to make medical determinations of how long a patient who needs post-acute care, that means a patient who has been at the hospital, they've gotten surgery, they've been recovering, possibly even in the IC, in the intensive care unit, and now they have to be transferred out of the hospital into nursing care, or nursing care facility or nursing skill facility. And of course, insurance coverage for that tends to be highly limited. Typically, on average, we see anywhere between 20 and 30 days of coverage for intensive care or skilled nursing facilities to do the rehabilitation work that patient will need after having been at the hospital, say for whatever number of days or weeks they've been in the hospital, right? And the reason why they do this, remember, is because hospitals are extremely expensive to stay in, right? A patient staying at a hospital on average is costing the hospital. It can run anywhere between several $1,000s daily to $10,000, $15,000 a day, if not more, depending on the technology that they need to use and how many doctors and the nursing that, the patient side care that's required. So it's very expensive to be in a hospital. So what do? They send those people out after their stay at the hospital to nursing care. I wanted to explain that because many people may not be familiar with that aspect of medicine and healthcare, that when that's necessary, they end up in a nursing skill facility, usually for a couple of weeks, typically no longer than that. It could be up to a month. And then under special circumstances and constant appeals and approval procedures, by doctors, in other words, approved by actual doctors, the person might be able to stay longer than 30 days in a nursing skill facility. Here we have the AI making that determination. If we go to the next slide.
All right, slide 17, United Health defenses.
Right. Here, as you can see, what we have is United Health basically saying, no, we're not using the AI algorithm. We're not using it to make medical decisions. Well, of course not. They're not going to admit to that, right? They would never admit to that. And that's not me being cynical. That's just what the response is going to be from any healthcare provider or coverage, insurance company. And so what's happened here is here they are defending themselves, saying, no, we are using the AI to determine the type and level of nursing skill facility care that the person will need, right? In other words, deciding what kind of care they will need and for how long, right? And then they go with that decision from made by the artificial intelligence. In other words, it's not made by a human being or a panel of humans. It's made by the machine. The machine makes the determination of how long the person should be staying in a nursing skill facility. The problem with that, of course, is that that decision should always be made by a doctor, which is what the plaintiffs are alleging, right? That because a doctor did not make that decision, they're saying that the doctor never made decisions like that. The machine did, right? Then, because of that reason, those two persons who passed away because of the lack of medical care that would have otherwise kept them alive longer. Now, you have to understand in terms of the legal aspects of this that a wrongful death, it's never really about whether the person would have survived had they been given the care, right? The point is to prove to the court and to a jury is to prove that we didn't have the benefit of the doubt as a patient, right? The family doesn't have the benefit of the doubt that, well, what if they had stayed an extra month in nursing skilled, in a nursing skilled facility? Would they have survived? Would their condition have improved? Or would they have been sent back to the hospital because maybe they were not improving? And then the hospital would have done something about that, maybe taken care of the person with improved health care or another surgery or something. And what they're saying is basically that that didn't happen because the insurance provider, the carrier, denied that opportunity. So that's what this is about. You have an AI making decisions alleged to be making medical determinations which should never, if we think about this from a moral and ethical standpoint, a machine should never make the kinds of decisions that would translate to life and death decisions, because we're talking about the denial of healthcare, or the possible denial of healthcare that would have otherwise improved the person's ability to maybe live longer or not die, basically. So that's what these lawsuits are about. And by the way, these lawsuits are typically settled out of court privately. As a public, we hardly ever get to know what happens when they settle, or how much money will exchange hands, or how much money the insurance carrier will pay out. But I can tell you categorically from experience, as a lawyer, that in following these through the legal journals and articles that get posted by other attorneys, including defense counsel who defend companies like United Health, I can tell you that the settlements tend to be large when it comes to wrongful death. We're talking millions of dollars, unless there's a state law that caps healthcare related insurance payouts. And folks, this is a spiel of mine, sort of a caveat, a warning to stay aware, beware that whatever state you live in has more than likely capped the medical damages that a plaintiff can collect for a wrongful death lawsuit, or medical malpractice lawsuit. Beware that the legislatures of that state have passed laws that cap those amounts. And I am talking about ridiculous caps, like capping healthcare related costs to $250,000. In other words, nobody becomes a millionaire after these legislative caps have gone into place. And of course, this politics comes into this. Lobbying groups come into this, the legal lobbying group, the medical lobbying groups, the insurance lobbying groups. Everybody goes and lobbies Congress and the Senate of every state, just like they do it at the federal level. And their intent is to lower the amounts of money they have to pay out when it comes to litigation, especially civil lawsuits like wrongful death lawsuits and negligence lawsuits. This is what this is all about. This is a huge global problem that we could go on and on forever. So we're going to go to the next slide.
Diego, I moved on to the observations divided from the case slide. It's slide 18 for
Yeah,
us.
and an interesting observation here that I just kind of want to point out is that notice that 90% of these kinds of decisions of people who have to go into a nursing skilled facility, 90% of those get approved for the person to stay in the nursing care facility longer than what insurance typically allows. 90% get approved when the decision is made by a human being or by a panel of individuals, people, not the machine, not the AI. When you finally appeal a decision that you suspect was made by an AI, or you happen to know it was made by an AI because maybe it is disclosed in the carrier's paperwork, and you go and seek that appeal, those appeals are typically handled by people, by humans, and 90% of them get approved. And what's the reason? The reason is very clear: because there are doctors involved, because there's a doctor, an MD, who looks at this and goes, yeah, this person needs to stay in skilled nursing facility longer. They're not ready to be sent home. And that's kind of what happens. And so when this is up in court, what do they bring in to be professional witnesses or expert witnesses? Doctors. And what do the doctors always tell them? They say, hey, in my view, the patient should have been spending more time at the nursing care. And if they saw that the person was not improving, they should have been sent back to the hospital. That's always the response that they get. And so that's why these things get settled out of court, because they know that if they end up in court, they're just not going to get anywhere. Next slide.
All right, we're going to slide 19, the black box syndrome.
So the black box syndrome, I want to point out is basically the idea that we don't know what's inside the black box. There's a black box in the middle of the table in a white room. There's nothing else in there. No chairs, no nothing, just a black box. And whatever's inside the black box, it's connected to some wire. It's going out, and it's connected to some other system, and that system is making decisions based on what the black box tells it to do. That's the metaphor, right? It's a black box problem. The other problem associated with this has to do with the fact that the inventors of artificial intelligence, such as OpenAI, um, I forget the name of the other one, Marissa. I can't think of the name of the
Chat
company.
GPT or
Well, that's
maybe
OpenAI, but there's another one. We got Microsoft, we have Apple, we have, of course, Amazon. They're all jumping into the AI fray and or frying pan, as it were. And some of them are jumping into the fire and getting into a lot of trouble because of it.
and we threw up an
Yeah,
image there of
DeepSeek.
the
Thank you. Somebody mentioned, I think, DeepSeek,
yes.
which is, I think, a Chinese company. Basically, what's going on here is that they are filing patent protection. These people are going to the courts. They are going to the the Federal Patent and Trademark Office of the federal government, which is part of the Library of Congress. If you thought that the Library of Congress only stores away books and paintings and recordings, think again. They are the ones who give inventors patents. They have the patent office there, which is staffed by highly technically trained professionals with PhDs, law degrees, medical degrees, you name it. And those people work in there doing nothing but reviewing patents all day long, basically deciding whether or not an inventor or a company representing an inventor or an invention is going to get this patent. What is a patent? A patent is a protection document. It's a license that prohibits anybody else from using whatever the contents of the patent is, whatever the invention is. Anybody else who comes up with the same idea elsewhere, they are not protected because somebody got the patent first. They got there first, they got their patent, and they are now protected, and no one else gets to experiment and work with that patent, whatever it is protecting. In this case, we're talking about AI, right? Like OpenAI, ChatGPT. There's a patent on that. They hold a patent. Nobody can copy it. Nobody can do what it's doing with it, and so on and so forth, right? Now, there is such a thing as open source software development out there, and it's a huge field. Open source means that anybody can just grab it and run away with it, make their own modifications, and make whatever money they want to make with it, right? The problem with that is that you run the risk of using a product that has not been peer checked or approved by the federal government if it's a medical device, or approved by ISO, you know, and so that's basically what. And yes, the U.S. Patent Office is treated as a separate office. Anyway, somebody was correcting. And I appreciate the correction. But the idea is that these things get protection, and the black box, once it becomes protected by patents and copyrights and trademarks, nobody gets to open under the hood and look inside to see how it works. That's what black box is about. Next slide.
Okay. Forced slide 20 is forced self-indulgence and integrational change.
So I just want to mention this very briefly. Basically, what we have is, in my view, please understand these are my views on this slide, right? Based on my reading and my take of what I'm seeing out there, what's being published and what's being discussed and talked about. In my view, as a critic, as a skeptic, a lot of these folks, especially the CEOs running these companies, I think are really starting to commit a lot of hubris. They are engaging in claims that are just simply either tacitly not true or outright lies. or they are making statements like, oh my gosh, in 2 years, we're all going to be going out on dates with androids with superhuman intelligence. And you just sit there going, huh? What? You know, and it's the thing of science fiction movies. And so what you see here is that kind of self-indulgence, I think, on their part, because they are so engaged in raising the money, the billions of dollars that they need to make this happen, right? And I could name names, but I'm not going to, because you guys can use your imagination. You can think of many names out there, both politically motivated and politically unmotivated, of people who are out there constantly on everybody's face saying, use my product. My product is the best. You will win if you use my product. You know, in 12 months, we will have a walking, talking robot being your servant at home. And, we just think, gee, wouldn't that be great, right? Wouldn't that be nice? Um, who will have a super intelligence built in there. And oh, yeah, and he will be sentient like a human being. He will talk about ideas and philosophy, and it just goes on and on and on. And I mean, you can read this stuff. I'm not making any of it up. It's amazing. Next slide.
All right, going to slide 21. The simple definition of AI. And we threw up a little purple AI sign there, just the letters AI up against a purple background.
Okay. And again, don't want to dwell on this too much. I think people can look this stuff up. If you want, my definitions here are really quite simplistic. They are overly simplistic, because otherwise we have to end up with 20 or 30 slides to talk about, a definition that would meet with everybody's, agreement or understanding. So this is the basic premise. And I want to point out again that a super artificial intelligence, and ASI, or ASI, and ASI, it doesn't exist, folks. If you're thinking that there's some kind of an AI out there that can rationalize and think like a human being, there's no such thing. It does not exist. I don't care how blue in the face somebody wants to argue with me about that and debate that issue. It doesn't exist, not even in a lab. They are experimenting with quantum computing. Yes, quantum computing is supposed to be the next, level in computers for all of us. I don't think we're not close yet. I think we're like 10, 20 years away from an actual working quantum computer that people can have at home. So, until that occurs, the idea of a super intelligence, artificial intelligence, is very, very far in the future. Some scientists predict as far as 100 years away, 50 to 100 years away, that kind of prediction, only because it's just so far away from us right now. The whole idea of a machine being like a human being is just, imitating or being a clone of a human brain is just beyond anything that we can possibly imagine. And it's great stuff for science fiction movies, HAL, and some of the other AI computers in some of the movies out there. The movie Blade Runner was a great example of artificial intelligence in androids. And anyway, so let's go to the next one.
All right, so slide 22, we've got the 3 types of AI systems.
So there's your 3 types right there.
Do you want me to read these off, or?
No, I don't think it's necessary. I want to apologize to some people that would prefer that we read the slides off. I save that option when it's something a little bit more complex that I want people to actually hear, so that we can engage in a discussion like a case scenario or illustration. So that's when I use Marisa to kind of read some of these things. But some of this stuff is pretty cut and dry, as you can see on the slide. And that's the only reason. The other reason that I don't have Marisa read every slide is because we will run out of time really, really quickly, folks. I mean, we don't have enough time to read them all out loud. So like Emily told people earlier, you can have the PowerPoint and the slides, to look them over. Okay, next slide.
All right, so slide 23, we go into machine learning.
So machine learning is important to mention again as part of the definition, because really what we're talking about is machine learning when we talk about artificial intelligence, right? ChatGPT is machine learning at its finest, right now, along with the other one, the one that was just mentioned, DeepSeek or whatever, and you got Copilot from Microsoft and some of those. This is all machine learning. The machine learns based on the input that it's getting from users and the input it's getting from its programmers behind the scenes. So we have all these different methods of training these machines. Go to the next slide.
All right, we've got the deep learning, slide
Yeah, so
24.
this is one of those methods of how AI machines learn. It's deep learning. This is where they just throw billions and billions of data, collected data. This is how they train the machine. And then you got algorithms which basically behave as if a human were reading the data, sifting through it, filtering out what's crucial and what's not crucial. And it's all based on the questions and inquiries that people submit to it. And so it's like a self-serving circle that just goes around and around, picking up new information, divesting new information, picking more information up, then modifying the information again. It just keeps doing this over and over and over again. But I want you to remember the different kinds, because it's important to understand that an AI could be a narrow intelligence, such as a smart thermostat in somebody's house. You can buy a smart thermostat that is measuring the temperature inside and outside and figuring out, when you tell it, oh, set the thermostat to 72 degrees, it's actually measuring what's inside and what's happening outside. It's also taking into account how much power is being consumed by the AC unit. It's taking all these things into account, and the AI is measuring and balancing out how to operate properly and efficiently and save energy and so on. So that's a very narrow intelligence trained to work on that that project alone. Okay, next one.
All right, so we're moving to falsely monetizing AI, slide 25.
And how are we doing with time, Marisa?
We're at 34 after, so we are getting a little bit crunched.
Okay, because we're supposed to stop at 2:30, right?
Yes.
Okay, or rather, half past the hour. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so sorry, we are on the
We're on falsely monetizing AI. We're
so
talking
falsely
about
monetization of AI. This is extremely important for people to understand what's happening. If I'm going to be emphatic about anything, it is this slide. AI is being rampantly falsely monetized by those people I mentioned earlier, the CEOs, the heads of the companies, and it's also being falsely monetized by people who are buying the AI tools and deploying them into their systems, whatever the company is, whether it's a hardware company like, well, I'm not going to mention names. Let's not do that. That way nobody points the finger at anybody. But, big box stores, big grocery store chains, clothing stores, any of these companies you can point are investing heavily in so-called artificial intelligence or machine language intelligence, and they are deploying them right away based on the false statements or misleading statements. They may not necessarily be false, but they might be misleading because there's no clarity to what's being said. And so they are deliberately leaving statements unclear or vague by saying you may earn upwards of $1 million a year if you invest your money with our investment firm, right? Notice the language I just used. You may earn up to $1 million a year if you invest $10,000 with our investment firm, right? They're not saying you're going to, but they're saying you might, right? So there's no promise that you will, so they don't get sued for promising something they can't deliver on, that they know they will not deliver on. But they're using the AI to reinforce that. Our company is using the latest artificial intelligence technology to boost your profits, to maximize your property purchasing power in commercial real estate. Our artificial intelligence will analyze the maps and give you the best possible prediction out there. We're better than everybody else. This is the problem. This is falsely monetizing AI. I think that I'm being emphatic enough that we can probably move on to the next slide.
All right, slide 26, we've got FTC operation, AI comply.
There we go. So the Federal Trade Commission is essentially going after.
And we've got a little picture up there that we threw up there, guys, of a little robot with a giant red money symbol. He's leaning on it.
Right. So, some people just don't like the federal government. They say that the federal government gets in the way of everything and that they manipulate everything and that they ruin everything and so on and so on and so on and so on. And I am not going to preach whether the federal government is good or bad or anything like that, including state. That includes state government. But some of these law enforcement agencies do have a purpose, and some of them actually follow their intended purpose, and they enforce the law, like trade deceptive practices, right? Every state, by the way, has a trade deceptive practices law or act or statute. You should know that. If you don't, become familiar with it, because many people file lawsuits based on trade deception. And many people win their cases in court because they were fooled into buying and using something that did not work based on a practice of deceiving the public about what they were buying. This is where false monetization of AI comes in, right? It's a deception. And the FTC is looking at this going, yeah, we're going to put a stop to that. And, our aim is to not ruin somebody's business model, but simply saying, hey, don't lie to the people that you're selling to, okay? It's not a very nice thing to do. And really, it's not a very kind thing to do to your public, is to lie to the public and have them buy a product that is the AI, it's not going to deliver on that. An example, yeah, people are giving us examples. I love that. Thank you. One example I can think of is where they are a lot of investment companies are claiming to be using AI to improve investments, and the FTC has already fined several because it turned out they were not even using an AI at all. They were simply making money on using the word AI or acronym AI. And that's really all it takes, is to use the two letters AI in a properly phrased sales pitch. And there you go. You're making money. Oh my gosh, it's AI. They're using AI. Whoa, dude. I'm jumping in, And that's what they're trying to prevent. And this is what the public needs to be very aware of. This is really the intent behind this presentation, folks. It's not that. So far, you probably tell that I haven't said too much about disabilities. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide.
Okay, we're at slide 27, the AI-based website accessibility checker, and we threw up there the Accessibility logo that we found. Yeah.
Yep. So poor Accessibility, again, I am not out. I am a number one capitalist when it comes to money and making money in a business, and and doing things. But I'm sorry, but I believe in being honest and making money is the honest way. Earning your money, earning your keep. And XSB, I mean, I guess it just kind of got out of hand, and they started promising things that really they shouldn't have promised. And it was painfully obvious that the AI was not going to fix the lack of accessibility on the website of a particular business, of any given business, because there's a lot of litigation relating to the Americans with Disabilities Act, Title III, and whether or not websites must be compliant with the with the web, um, accessibility guidelines. And so that's where this comes in with Accessibility, where they're saying we will make your website compliant with W3C, WCAG, accessibility guidelines, and the AI was not doing that. It was failing at actually doing that. It might have made some elements, menus, or using the mouse or anything, something like that, maybe more accessible. But the problem was that it was just not doing what it was promising. Let's go to the next slide.
Okay. So slide 28, again on Accessibility, falsely monetizing AI services.
Yeah, so I think that we talked about this a lot. That people can see that this is what happened here. It was just a false use of, telling people that the AI was going to fix the problem, and it's not. Go to the next slide.
And there's lots of headlines out there right now about what's going on with Accessibility and
Yeah.
such. Okay,
Yeah, and,
slide
and you know, and
29.
I hate for a business to suffer, but they, I think they will find $1 million basically, and that can make or break a business. So, but anyway, which one are we on now?
All right, we're on treating people with disabilities differently, and we threw
Okay,
up
so let's
there,
jump into some disability issues here,
yeah,
right?
slide 29.
Yeah. So keep in mind that, what did I start out with? I started out with talking about AI being used in medicine advancement and helping people with disabilities have a better life, right? There's no denying it. So we have all along been talking about disabilities, right? I said we weren't, but we actually have been, you know, because AI is going to be a major part of a person's disability. Even to the point where there will be ways of people who don't are unable to afford certain things, they will eventually find ways to get those people what they need to have a better life, through an artificial intelligence type of tool or wearable device or mechanism of some sort. By the way, they're putting AI into mechanical knees. A person has a knee replacement, and they're putting AI, a chip in there, in the actual replaced knee. And what it does is it helps to modify how the muscles begin to learn how to operate that knee again. Even though the knee is mechanical, right? The muscles have to adjust to it. And the AI is put in there to help the person begin to balance better, improve balancing, improve walking ability. It just, it's amazing what they're doing. Again, I don't think I need to reemphasize that over and over again. All right, let's go to the next one.
All right. So AI profiles people on everything. It's a slide 30, and
So
we
this
have
is,
a link in there to the EU General Data Protection Regulation, which
yeah, thank you,
it may
Marissa.
not, that link may,
May
we
or may
tested
not
it.
work.
Well, we
Yeah.
tested it yesterday and it was working. Just FYI, some of these links, if they are government related websites, they
Yeah,
may, by the end of this presentation, they may
right.
not always, they may not all work.
So, yeah, so some people might ask you, well, why are you putting the EU's law in there? Well, I put it in there because the United States so far is a mishmash of state-related laws, if there are any at all, and there is no federal law on this subject matter. I mean, we can talk about the ADA and how it defines disability and all of that, but what we're talking about is profiling. AI profiles people, humans, I want to make that painfully clear that in AI, whether we're talking about the thermostat inside your home or the Apple Watch that I'm wearing, which measures my heart rate and respiration rate and some other things, or whether we're talking about a driverless car or whether we're talking about an electric car with AI built into it, even though it's not driverless, it still has AI in it. There's cars out there already with AI that do self correction. When the person veers off a lane, you get the little beeps. Sometimes even it actually turns the wheel while you're driving. This is all stuff that's out there already being deployed and used. And so what we're talking about is profiling. And AI is essentially a huge profiling tool. They feed it information, or it is machine language that learns by itself, and it feeds on information being fed by the human input, right? Whether it's driving a car, the AI in the car is recording every single thing the driver does, including switching on the radio on or off, or choosing what playlist to listen to. All that stuff is being recorded by the AI, right? And so we're being profiled. Whether we like it or not, we're being profiled. There's nothing that we can do about it. I mean, unless you're the type of person who wants to go off and live in the hills with no technology whatsoever around you, or wearing any technology on your wrist, having no technology in your home. Quite frankly, that means not having any power at home, because even power is being given to people. Electric power is being transferred to people's homes through an AI that is measuring how people are using that power at home, how many outlets are being used, how many light bulbs are turned on. All of this information is being collected and pooled into a database, a massive database collecting all this information depending on what the subject matter is. All these companies, Amazon, its Alexa app, it's doing nothing but collecting and profiling people. You don't like the idea of being profiled? Then you're going to have to switch off Alexa and not talk to it. Because every time you talk to it and you say, Alexa, play the Brandenburg Concerto by Bach, it remembers that. So, for example, my Alexa at home has announcements, right? And it says, you have announcements. So I go listen to the announcement, and it says, the artist you follow, John Sebastian Bach. I'm going, wait, that composer's been dead for, 200 or 300 years or whatever, from the Baroque period. Yeah, the artist I follow, Bach, has a new single. I kid you not. It'll say it has a new single. It's like a piece of the Brandenburg Concerto or something. And I'm going, wow, just because I requested something one time, that's what's going on with profiling. Please remain aware that something as simple and routine as buying your new iPhone at the Apple Store, when they turn it on, the first thing the technician does when they switch it on is put your name into it. What's your first name? Oh, my name is Laura. Oh, okay. And he types it in there. So now your iPhone that you just bought has your name on it. You've just started being profiled. It's the beginning of the road on your iPhone. Your iPhone is already profiling you. Now, some people like me who are a little bit paranoid about things like that, go in there and remove that, because at least we do have the option to remove personal information like that, like your first name, from a device like an iOS device. You can go in there and take it out and put in, my name is Mr. Robot or whatever you want to put in there, So keep that in mind. Let's go to the next slide.
All right, so we're going to slide 31, talking about AI in employment, and we've put a few like I guess, pictures up there. We've got little bots about clocking in, some different or popular clock in out type applications, Microsoft Teams.
Hmm.
We've got the Clockify app logo in there, just
Yeah.
to throw out some examples there.
So here is a huge topic in AI and disabilities, employment. Job applicants are being profiled by the artificial intelligence being used and deployed by human resources departments throughout the entire planet. It's not just the United States, it's anywhere you go. They are all using these AI tools to sift through resumes and applicants online and decide, and the machine, the AI decides which ones get picked for a call out to do an interview. Okay. Now, the interview may actually, in most cases nowadays, ends up being a video chat with another AI where you will be on camera, your face will be focused on, the light will come on, and you'll have to smile, and you will be answering questions and having a conversation with an AI that's going to be asking you questions and asking you to discuss, whatever the topic being asked about is. So um, this is what's happening now. There's no way to put the genie back in the bottle, to use a crude metaphor. It's out of the bottle. There's no way for us to put it back. It's just not going to change. If we're talking about large corporations and how they hire people, college students or entry level people without degrees or who have a GED, whatever the company happens to be, whatever the work is, whatever the industry is, they are using an AI to sift through the resumes and applications, or the online applications. If they're not submitting resumes, then they're taking in applications, right? So that's kind of what's going on there. Let's go to the next slide.
Right. So we've got slide 32 is AI automation likely to measure disability. And we've got a little picture we threw up there. It says it's a woman who is standing across from a robot
Yeah,
at a computer station. And I guess the clip there, it says the AI hiring manager will see you now.
right. And that's basically what's happening. What is this slide again? What's it called?
It's the AI automation likely to measure disability. So
Thank
the
you. In
decision-making
case,
tool. Hmm.
yeah, sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, you.
No, I was just going to say, in case people don't know, I'm visually impaired, and so I'm having Marissa name the slides because that's how my memory works as to what topic we're on and where we are. So
It's
in case
trying to
people
stay
didn't
on
know,
topic.
now you know. Okay. Um, yeah, so we have a lot of automation happening in the world of employment now, and it is, have no doubt in your minds out there, that it will adversely affect people with disabilities. There's no doubt as to how much we get to know about this problem, to what extent it will end up being in court or litigated or pursued by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. We do not know yet. The EEOC is definitely on top of it. At least they have been for the past several years. It is a major action priority on the EEOC's issues list. I mean, it's like at the top. It's at the top with pregnancy related discrimination. It is at the top with disability related discrimination. And it is at the top with age discrimination. It's at the very top of the list of things that they need to look into in laws that they enforce. Don't forget that the EEOC enforces Title I of the ADA, which deals with employment discrimination. Next slide.
All right. So slide 33, we've got the issue of employers analyzing LinkedIn video profiles. And we threw up a
So,
picture of a woman there whose face is she's got her face and it's being analyzed basically like on a computer screen.
exactly. And this is what I said a few minutes ago. Um, my question to everyone out there is, are you sure you want to do a video interview on LinkedIn? And by the way, I was looking it up. I was reading about it because I hadn't thought about it, and I looked into it. Apparently, the video you can make on LinkedIn is about 30. It's about um, oh my gosh, it's like a minute or 2 minutes. It's very, very brief, very, very short, very short. We're not talking about spending a half hour on a video answering questions here. It's a very brief video profile that you create and put up there for people to see as part of your resume when you're applying for jobs on the LinkedIn platform, which is basically an employment platform like Career Builder and whatever that other one is.
Like Indeed or something.
Yeah, like Indeed, exactly. So basically, LinkedIn, it basically has marketed itself in a different way. It's made itself more of a social media slash employment platform where people are performing different functions by being on there. They are either advertising themselves as having gotten this great new job, and they like to talk about their job and where they're traveling to or what presentation or conferences they go to. I've done that on LinkedIn. Um, the Southwest ADA Center is on LinkedIn. Transcend is on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We're all on LinkedIn. We're all doing something in there. And so I am not maligning LinkedIn in any way. I'm just simply pointing out that you should really consider and reconsider and think about before jumping into the water and doing a video profile. Why am I saying that? What does AI do when they have the AI analyze your video profile? Or the company you applied for takes that LinkedIn video. If LinkedIn did not put it through an AI, right? The company you apply with or the company you work for will have no doubt of that. They will put it through an AI that will analyze every single aspect of your video profile. How many times you blinked, how many times you opened your mouth, how many times you stuck your tongue out, how many times you showed your teeth, how many times you had facial expressions of the different variety, how long did you hold your face straight without a smile, how many times you raise your eyebrows. Why am I being so emphatic, folks? Because we're being profiled. That's why. And the AI is producing a report at the end of the day of what that profile means, right? Remember the first slide? The AI is measuring the throat vibrations of a person who can't speak because of a disability, right? Well, here the AI is measuring every single aspect of your facial expressions, including and up to your voice, your eye movements, eye color, everything. It's looking at everything, and it puts out a report that the human resources people get to look at. And I think I might have scared some people out there. Sorry about that. It's just that, we don't think about this stuff, right, Marissa? I mean, we don't think about it. It's so pervasive now that we go on YouTube and we watch video. La la la. We're happy watching videos about pets and dogs and cats and elephants and alligators, and we're watching videos on people cleaning their houses or watching videos of people doing all kinds of stuff, reviewing cheap audio equipment, which I love watching that one. I watched the cheap audio man on YouTube. And that was a shameless plug just because I like the guy. And I'm into audio. I'm an audiophile. I like listening to music on a good sound system. And I'm always looking out to see what the next big speakers are or the next amplifier is. And you're doing this. Well, sorry, but YouTube is profiling every move that I'm making. Every video I'm watching, it is profiling me. It's remembering all of it. When I log on the next time, it's showing me stuff that I might be interested in because, well, I was watching those videos last time. Anyway, I want to. What slide are we on right now, Marissa?
So we're on 33, and we are getting close to. We're at 2:00. So
we might have some questions. What is the next slide?
do.
Is it? Let's finish the employment section.
Yeah, we've got the EEOC personality trait testing.
Okay, so this is very important. Let me talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
Remember that when you go for an employment interview, now what's going on is that they're asking personality trait questions. Okay, this is a warning. Personality trait questions, trait questions, have to do with asking you questions like, how many times did you steal a paperclip in the last 5 years for the employer you've been working for? Right? Let's say that they asked you how many years have you been working with the current employer. You say, I've been working there for 5 years. The next question says, how many times did you steal a paperclip? Notice how the question I just made up is not giving you a choice to say, I never stole a paperclip. It's just asking how many times did you steal a paperclip. And the blank field will not accept an answer other than a number or zero. How are you supposed to answer that question exactly? If you put zero, is the HR person going to read the report and say, yeah, they're lying. Everybody steals paper clips? Or is the HR person going to go, oh, we have an honest worker here who doesn't steal things. How cool. How cool is that? You know? So here's the problem. Personality trait questions are not disability related inquiries, which are prohibited by the ADA, right? Remember, any question that elicits information about a person's disability, such as, do you have any mental health related emotional disorders or psychiatric disorders? That question is totally illegal. They cannot ask you a question like that. Okay. Anyway, so I think this is pretty clear. Go to the next slide.
All right, slide 35, we got medical examination versus personality trait test, which you're
Right,
just
and I
talking
want,
about.
yeah, we're not going to linger on this too much, right? It basically talking about personality traits. This is what I wanted you to know about versus medical examinations. Please remember this, if you remember anything at all from this. The questions are so subtle. Employers are asking questions now that are so subtle that it's hard to tell if they're asking you to uncover a disability or if they're asking you a trait personality question, which they can ask. So you have to be on the lookout. You have to start reading online what questions amount to personality trait and what questions may amount to medical inquiries that are unlawful. So please try to understand, you know, questions like, have you had any personality mood swings in the past 30 days? Okay. What does that question do? That question is basically making an unlawful disability related inquiry, because answering that question one way or the other implies that you could have an emotional disorder or psychiatric disorder. So keep this in mind. And yet notice how the question also sounds like a personality trait question, right? Are you prone to mood swings? Really? I mean, who would answer that? You know, how would you even answer that kind of a question, right? It's one thing to be asked that question doing a person-to-person live interview, because you can learn how to deflect questions like that, you know? I mean, I would simply ask, I'm sorry, how does anybody even answer a question like that? I mean, you know, I mean, I was sitting in bad traffic. I mean, do you call that having a mood swing because you're upset? You're sitting in downtown Manhattan, 34th Street Avenue traffic. You know, again, this is really a highly problematic area, and it's only going to get worse. It's not getting any better, because these questions are being asked in video chat boxes during job interviews that are being handled by AI now, as opposed to an actual recruiter. Next slide.
All right, Diego, we have literally about 15 minutes to go.
Okay.
So
Okay.
next slide, we are at 36. It's the 2022 EEOC DOJ joint guidance.
All right, let's skip that. That's a joint guidance that people can look up. I don't want to say too much about it. It's just a guidance telling employers as well as individuals what to look out for if they're going to use artificial intelligence tools. The only reminder I want to put in here is it relates to The fact that remember that discrimination based on disability can be intentional or it can be unintentional. Either way, if the artificial intelligence tool causes an adverse action against a person with a disability, such as declining employment or removing an accommodation or denying an accommodation, right? That will be a prohibited action under the ADA, regardless of whether it was done intentionally or not. Please keep that in mind. Intentional versus unintentional, they are both covered under the ADA. Okay? Discrimination can be very much unintentional. You could have a great employer you work for. Suddenly they institute a new AI to collect information from people. And guess what? It is having an adverse effect on somebody who's got a disability. Next slide.
All right. So we've got Meet Buddy.
Yeah, so
slide
this is the
37.
education materials. I'm going to very quickly say, again, this goes back to the earlier comment about hubris and engaging in self-indulgent claims. This company wants everybody on the planet to have Bod E on their side when they're getting educated. And I thought that was just such a far-fetched claim. I thought, wow, this is just, incredible. That to think that they can see themselves as, putting an educational AI by your side to become your bud, right? Your buddy, right? But, it's a sales pitch. It may or may not be false advertising. I don't know. False monetizing. I don't know. But we'll leave it at that because we talked about it. Next.
Yeah. Diego, can we jump to let's see, we're going to the AI use as accommodation denied. I know we've got some attention that was really generated around that.
Yes, the accommodation denied. Thank you, Marisa. So let's talk about an accommodation situation. We have a student who wants to use an AI to basically plug in an entire chapter of a textbook and get the AI to summarize the entire chapter in this example to keep it under 2,000 words so that he or she can use that summary to decide whether or not to use it in their research paper. Would that be a reasonable accommodation or not? I am doing it rhetorically, asking the question. I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just simply throwing it out there because there are people who are screaming and shouting about this, saying, "No, that is not a reasonable accommodation. How are you supposed to learn to synthesize something you read if you're going to have an AI doing it for the person, right?" Well, suppose the person might have a legitimate disability that keeps them from that it takes them so long to read anything that the AI would save them the time by condensing the information to 2,000 words that they could use to decide whether or not to use it in their research paper. Well, again, it's a difficult question to answer because the professor, the faculty will have a lot to say on the matter of what is the intention behind the lesson. Is he teaching people to synthesize the information on their own, using their own brain, and deciding what's important in the article and what's not important in the article? Guess what? That means the accommodation will be denied. It's going to be unreasonable. It will be a fundamental alteration of the teaching curriculum. It's just not going to work as an accommodation. Yeah, the person might have a slow reading problem, related disability, but the fact that they have to learn how to synthesize information, how do they learn if the machine is doing it for them? That's what this boils down to. These really, really difficult questions. Next slide.
All right, and we're at slide 41, and we've got what is the AI accommodation as a follow-up to that previous slide.
Let's skip that. Let's go to the next one.
Okay, so are we biometric prisoners? And here we've thrown up a picture of the prisoner from the old TV show cover.
Yeah,
of
from the 1960s.
Yes, Patrick McGowan there. I am not a number.
Right. So remember, folks, we are being biometrically profiled in every sense and aspect you can possibly imagine, no matter where you go. You better smile for the camera when you go into any place because you are being profiled. You walk into a courthouse, you're being profiled by the cameras looking down at you when you go into the courthouse. What are they trying to figure out? There's an example coming up that we're going to skip. Great, thank you, great actor. Yeah, he was a great actor. And it was a great show because the show dealt with the fact that he was being profiled and he was tired of being profiled and he did not want to be stamped, profiled, singled out, briefed or debriefed or whatever, right? That was the whole point of not being profiled, which is why I made such a big deal out of it. Go to the next slide. I'm thinking that we can get to questions here pretty quickly.
Okay. Yeah, we've got the FTC's first AI enforcement action about facial recognition.
Right, and this is you can use your imagination. They stopped the pharmacy from using a camera that was misidentifying people as being shoplifters. That's what this is about. Again, they're profiling people. The AI is profiling people in an adverse method by just simply looking at people with darker skin colors or wearing hoodies. Automatically, they become suspects of shoplifting. And that's wrong. That's just not something that we should allow to happen.
Occur.
Go to the next
All right.
one.
So slide 44, that's a little bit more on the biometric AI with the FTC Rite 8 ban. Biometric scans, that's slide 45 of humans routinely collected and sold.
We talked about that. Yeah.
Okay.
I got ahead of myself.
So conclusions, you've got, we're going to slide 48, your 3 outstanding threats to equality and fairness in employment.
How about this? How about we entertain some questions and you can switch those slides. There's only like 3 or 4 slides left. So.
Yep. All right. We're going to go to know the data, critical thinking.
I do want you to make sure you end up on that before the last slide, the one about the romantic AI.
All right.
I wanted you to like pause on that eventually.
Right. Second to last slide here, then we're on I'm in love with my car, slide 54. Why don't we stop there and take some questions?
Yeah, we'll take some questions. So I'm in love with my car, or Marisa gets the questions out. It's a song by the rock group Queen. I'm in love with my car. You know, I use that because the phrase, you know, and what we got going on here is an AI that has been created that allows the person to go modify the parameters in it, including the voice and the moods and everything, and basically behave as if the person had, in this case, a lady, as if she had a boyfriend that she's talking to. And I am not making this up. You can go look up the article. This is really happening today.
Okay. So going back to your analogy there about the video interview, the person's asking for the LinkedIn profile, are there privacy violation issues there? Do they have a choice to disagree to like a video interview on the LinkedIn?
Great question. There are no privacy violations because what they're doing is they're putting up a disclaimer that you'll either agree to or not agree to. If you don't agree to the disclaimer when you're about to do the video profile, they will not let you do the video profile. So you either agree to their terms or you don't. And guess what happens when you agree to their terms? You are agreeing to being profiled. You are agreeing to the violation of privacy, if that's what you think it is, or if you perceive it as such. You're also agreeing that any other third parties will get to use the video and look at it and go through it, analyze it, scrutinize it, profile it, just like in the Prisoner TV show. And it's going to happen. So if you disagree and decline it, then they're not going to force it on you. But it's going to get to the point, regrettably, I see it coming, that we're going to be end up forced to do it. And if we decline it, basically you don't get to apply for any jobs, at least not on that platform. And people, I think, need to be aware that this is a huge problem. It's already happening on many platforms where if you don't agree, you don't get the services, you don't get to participate, you're left out. Is that fair? No. Is it equitable? No. It's a problem. Can you sue for it? Is there a violation of rights? No, because since you didn't agree, then your rights are not being violated. This is the way that the legal world can be so cold-blooded against human beings because if there's no cause of action, there's no cause of action. If you declined it and you're not part of it, then how can you suffer, right? So the type of claims where we have to show that we're suffering is by somehow making the case that because we are obligated to decline so as to not relinquish our privacy rights and rights to confidentiality, especially medical information, we have to start alleging that that is in itself causing us harm because we're being kept from participation in an employment application process or applying for a promotion or buying goods and services, whatever the situation might might be. So,
So,
unfortunately, the answer is no. There are privacy acts being passed by legislatures, but I hate to sound cynical about it, but they're too little, too late, and these laws have no bite whatsoever. The most you can do is file a complaint with the Attorney General of that state. And if the Attorney General of that state is pro business, there's not much they're going to do about it. If the violations on the statute basically prevent you from seeking attorney's fees, then you can't sue anybody because the attorney will not get paid, and so on and so forth. So basically, these laws that claim to protect your privacy rights in biometric data collection, they're very, very, very toothless, unfortunately.
so Diego, do you think there will be a large amount of information regarding AI and legal claims in
Yeah.
disability in the future?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of litigation. It's only a matter of it's already happening. I'm not focusing on particular court cases necessarily. I think I might have mentioned one or two in this presentation.
We have a
But
couple.
yeah, but I'm not doing it because there's so many out there being filed, and most of them are pending. They're in the appeals processes or they're being litigated as we speak. And so there's not much that we can do or say other than await, an answer. There have been many claims brought against companies under biometric data protection acts, anti-data collection laws. Basically, these laws require notice. That's it. So as long as LinkedIn puts up a notification that says, by the way, you're about to allow us and give us permission to use this video clip, then you have agreed and it goes through and there's no violation. That's it. You've given up your right to file a claim because you agreed to the agreement. You consented.
So, Diego,
Yeah.
along that same line, because we have two questions from folks in here,
Hmm.
and it's basically around the same lines.
Yeah.
Um, uh, are are folks? Well, I guess this person's saying, am I correct in saying that the idea of disclosing a disability is moot since that choice is taken away through AI? For example, and that's going up to if someone's using
Hmm.
the AI like you put forth in that LinkedIn example.
Right.
Does that basically take that away in terms of
Yeah.
they're basically disclosing their disability and that's essentially it?
Well, here's the thing. Unfortunately, recruiting departments and AI tools being used on the internet, scraping information that's collecting data without people's permission. They're just scraping. One of the cases I had in this presentation is that a company that's being sued for scraping facial images from Facebook and some other websites, and it created a database with billions of facial images and scans, and it's been selling it throughout the planet to different law enforcement agencies and anybody who wants to buy all the facial images. And they sued, saying that they can't do that because they never got the approval of the people whose faces they're scraping, the photos that they're collecting. And that was basically in the pending process. It basically hadn't been decided yet. And the court simply said that they could proceed with their case and litigate, go to court. And what more than likely will happen with that is that there'll be a private settlement, and we'll never know about it. We'll never hear of it again. And Facebook will continue to do what it does, and so on and so forth. LinkedIn will keep doing what it does, and there's nothing we can do. Um, So it's just going to continue. These things, these cases will continue to show up, and it really, my aim for this presentation is to empower people to use their critical thinking skills before they click on the mouse or the button. Before they do that, just be aware. Be aware of it and try to mitigate from your end how much information you're giving out to people, how much information you're relinquishing. How much do you tell LinkedIn about yourself, right? Be careful. Be cautious. Don't just tell people that you like eating, seafood because the AI is collecting that information and mentioning that to the recruiters. This person eats seafood, you know, and maybe the recruiter hiring you doesn't like seafood, the smell of it. Now what? How do you know the recruiter is not prejudiced against somebody who likes to eat seafood? I mean, and all they did was look on a Facebook page, that this person likes to eat seafood. Yeah, I know I'm making a big deal out of something that sounds so stupid and trivial, but that's the problem, is that all of this data is being collected and used by AIs. So just be aware of what's happening.
All right. I think we have time for one or two more. So,
Okay.
Diego, this keeps coming up from folks. Someone's
Mhm.
asking, who is at the head of AI? It's a great
Well,
question.
it's the answer is painfully obvious. It's the head of the corporation. It's the board of directors. That's the head of the AI. I mean, whoever owns it, they're the head of the AI. There's no secret person behind the black box, right? Remember, there's no person in there that anybody can go talk to. That's the problem with patent and trademark protection. That once they get that protection, it is very difficult to take them into court and force them to open the hood so that we can see why it discriminated against a person with a disability. Why is it leaving out all applicants with identifiable disabilities? Right? That would be the question. Why is it doing that? Why is the AI doing that? That will be so that we can fix it, so that we can fix the problem. Sorry, my microphone was jumping around. Um, yeah. So
So,
that's the ultimate question, basically. Yeah,
all
go ahead.
right. One last question. And I think, if we didn't get to your question, we've got Diego's, oops, I think I went back on the slides there. Sorry. We've got our contact info there. Okay. For anybody we didn't get to real quick, but this one might send us off here. So with the current freeze in federal funding that we've heard about,
Mhm.
this person is saying that seems to have stopped a lot of research and innovation, et cetera.
Mhm.
How do you think that current freeze would affect things in terms of related to ADA enforcement in what we've been talking about today?
Well, I like to keep a positive outlook on ADA enforcement, right? Under that umbrella, which is the purview of the Department of Justice. Um, this might surprise people, but during the last several presidential administrations, including the last Trump administration, the last Obama administration, sorry, the Biden administration, Obama, George Bush,
Sure.
Clinton, and so on, right? The Department of Justice has always consistently enforced all titles of the ADA. I can't think of a time when we can point at a particular year or time frame where they just didn't enforce the ADA. They didn't do settlement agreements. They didn't litigate cases in court. It's hard to find any time where they did not enforce the ADA. So I want to leave people with that positive thinking, because I think that no matter who's in power, there are other people there. There are people who run things, right, who make things work in the federal government, that see that some of these things have to be enforced. Some of these laws have to be enforced, because otherwise the world just becomes chaos. If there's no enforcement of criminal law, crime would be chaotic, out of control. And the same goes for civil rights enforcement. Now, there are some really negative headlines out there about what's going on presently. Okay. But, I think that we need to let some time go by, a few months, half a year, maybe a year, I don't know, until, the dust settles. Because,
And
you can't just, they're just not going to stop enforcing the law. We live in a nation of laws where there are a lot of criminals out there, and they have to be stopped. So that's not going to change. Not much anyway.
and by the way, we also have some comments that came in. Yes, we do want to acknowledge that for now it appears that that freeze has been rescinded. We don't know much more.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
it's really hard to tell.
things can change at any time, folks.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
last few days has definitely shown us that, if
Hmm.
anything.
Hmm.
Um, and
Yeah.
then, again,
But have you know what, Marissa? I do want to say this though before we sign off, that AI research and artificial intelligence is here to stay. It is not going anywhere. Research will not stop. The corporations are investing billions of money, billions of dollars. It is not going away. So really have no fear that AI will stay with us. There will be more improvements medically for people with disabilities. There'll be more great things to come, just as there will be more bad things to come. There's no choice in the matter. We'll have to deal with the problems when we get there, when that bridge comes up.
okay, last question. Um, this person is working on ADA compliance for
Hmm.
an organization,
Yeah.
and they're wanting to know, do you have any information or tips on how they might address the ADA compliance factor so they don't get sued?
Well, not getting sued means that you comply with the non-discrimination requirements of the ADA to the extent that the ADA requires it, which I have to point out over and over again to people that the ADA is not an unreasonable law. It is not an affirmative action law. Nowhere does the ADA say we have to hire people with disabilities. There's no such thing. Anybody who believes that the ADA is affirmative action is sorely mistaken. It is a non-discrimination law. It has to be enforced by citizens individually by filing complaints or suing people or businesses. So comply with the non-discrimination requirements. I mean, it should be an inclusive world. I don't understand why any business would want to exclude people with disabilities from their markets. I don't get that. Since people with disabilities have money just like everybody else has money, and they drive cars and they buy things, and they have families and whatnot. And when it comes to employment, I don't understand why companies would not want to employ people with disabilities, since they come with the same set of skills, education, and background that everybody else does. So really using the disability as an excuse, as an scapegoat to oh well, yeah, we don't need somebody in a wheelchair here because it's a fire hazard here up on the 10th floor. I mean, come on, folks. That's just a blatant violation of the ADA, and they're not going to stand for it. The EEOC is not going to stand for it, no matter what administration is running things. So please keep that in mind. The ADA is an easy law to comply with. It doesn't require any business to get bankrupt. You know, reformatting a website, making a website accessible, it doesn't say take it, tear it down, and put a whole new one in. It just says just go and try fixing it. Start working on it and make it accessible. That's what the ADA where it comes from.
All right. We're at time, so I'm going to turn it over to Emily to close us out. I've put up slide 57 here, and this has the certificate of attendance code there.
And thank you everyone for attending. Yeah, it was great talking to everyone and hearing
Yes.
everybody's comments. Definitely.
Thank you,
Yeah.
and thank you guys. Thank you guys at the Mid-Atlantic for hosting this and doing all the work. So thank
And this
you.
is that. This is Emily, and thank you, Marissa and Diego. It's a great presentation. We appreciate your time today, and thank you to our ASL interpreters for keeping up with us. Appreciate that. And yes, on this slide here, slide 57 is the code word for your certificate of attendance. If you had purchased one before today's session, you may send that code to adatraining@transcend.org by close of business Monday, February 3rd. And we will get that certificate out to you within 1 to 2 weeks after today's session. So thank you for everyone. And yes, this session was recorded. It will be available and we will let folks know when it is available. But we will post that on our website. So thank you again. I appreciate it. We are definitely at time. So thank you again to everyone for joining us today. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Diego. Thank you, Diego. Thank you, Marisa.
Yes, great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.